determined to trust you and to proudly reenact how they killed thousands of people? First of all, how did you earn their trust? And secondly, can this film be shown in Indonesia? Can it make a difference in a country that is still ruled by people connected to the murderers?
Yeah, those are several very good questions. In terms of how I earned their trust, it actually relates to something I was thinking when Ben was talking about the unintended consequences of American foreign policy and foreign policy of other countries in the West and other powerful countries. The military dictatorship in Indonesia and the mass slaughter of anywhere between 500,000 at the lowest estimates to 2.5 million people, and then the decades of political repression that followed that were entirely intended consequences. And what's so troubling, I guess, is that probably there's a whole spectrum of atrocities that we don't address, that there's no effort to, or that there's very limited effort to address because they're not viewed as atrocities, they're invisible, or they're not properly addressed, or even when we try to address them, we get no traction in the media, to go back to also what Michael Winterbottom was talking about. So how I earned Anwar's trust was totally dependent on this. In North Sumatra, in Medan, Indonesia, for an outsider to come in, an American filmmaker, the characters in the act of killing love American movies. In fact, this is terrible, but Ben is a hero of Herman Koto along with Barack Obama. So they love American movies. For an American to come in, they don't know Ben's politics, and they don't know mine. So for me to come into North Sumatra as an American filmmaker, America supported the killing of the killings that my characters were involved with. They supported the repression that was based upon that ever since. They were the biggest donors, the aid givers to the Suharto military dictatorship ever since. So for me, when I arrived there, it was just assumed, oh, here's an American, here's one of our champions. This guy must love us. So all I had to do was be nice, be non-judgmental, be open, be kind, and listen. And that was really all I had to do to earn trust. It's the way we all are. I mean, everybody here knows how to do that. It's how you earn trust of anybody you approach in a non-judgmental way. But it was contingent, of course, on the fact that I was seen, that I was engaging with a situation which was an intended extension of American foreign policy, and I was an American. Your other question about, what's your other question?
Well, I was curious whether this film could be shown in Indonesia, and could it have any political effect, given that there's never been any real accountability to those horrific incidents?
Yeah. The film, I'm sort of on the record here, and I'd like not to tempt fate, but the film, it seems to me, has a very good chance of being banned in Indonesia and being attacked in Indonesia by the Pancasila youth paramilitary group that's in the film. And I think at the same time, the reaction from Indonesia has been the most gratifying reaction that we've had. It's been wonderful to be invited to the Telluride Film Festival. Werner Herzog's love for the film, Errol Morris's love for the film, Mark's love for the film. That's been really wonderful, but the most gratifying reaction we've had to date has been from Indonesia itself, from writers, critics, human rights organizations. So I can't speak at great length about how we'll release the film in Indonesia, because that's a very vulnerable process for everybody involved with it. But I can say that there will be a very, very big concerted effort to release the film in as widely as possible. but not in a commercial way, because that will be prone to attack and also the film will be banned. And there's a whole network of NGOs, human rights organizations, film groups, filmmakers, scholars who are waiting to release the film in Indonesia now.
Thank you.
And I think just one other thing, I think the film will make a very important difference in Indonesia. And I don't think that the thing that film is best at necessarily is usually making a difference. But I think I've sort of learned also through this process that the film, I have a very hot microphone. Move it away. I think that the film is an expose of how a whole country has been brainwashed into imagining a genocide and brainwashed into imagining it as something heroic, and it's a very, very powerful corrective. And I think it will change, it has the potential to change, if we can get it out in Indonesia as widely as we hope to, it has the potential to change the way a society imagines itself. And that's an enormous privilege and an enormous honor to be a part of that process.
Actually, I'm going to make sure that we highlight the word imagine, the way a society imagines itself, because none of the people, I think, would be on this panel if they weren't artists, as opposed to merely didactic people with an agenda. Before we get more into the questions of cinematic stylization, whether it's fiction or documentary, I want to ask Mark Danner to give us a little bit, perhaps, of a context of how you see these films, the act of killing, the gatekeepers, perhaps the attack too, in terms of your own assessment